Welcome to the Den. We are a podcast from Cubs Den. You can find us on the Chicago Now website. I'm your host, Miles Phelps. You can find me on Twitter at mphelps11. And obviously, make sure to follow at Cubs Den. With me tonight, I've got my good friend, Luis. You can find him on Twitter at LCM1986. He's a writer at BleacherNation.com, one of the better Cubs blogs around. He's also the lead writer at the 10yardline.com, one of the Bleacher Nation sister sites that is all about the Chicago Bears. So make sure to give him a follow. But Luis, how you doing, my man?
I feel great. It's been a nice start to the year. Cubs convention, always a great time of the year. It's nice to catch up with some friends and listen to some baseball talk for a change.
Right on. Yeah, I was really, really sad that I couldn't make it into town this year, especially just to not so much for the Cubs con shenanigans, but just to see all the writers in person and to see you and see Brett and a lot of the other guys that we hang out with. So I was sad that I couldn't make it, but it sounded like you guys had a blast.
There's always next year, man. There's always
next year. Always next year. So today we're going to talk a little bit about CubsCon because you were there. So I want to hear from you kind of what the vibe was, maybe what some of the better speaking engagements were. I also want to talk about some stuff around the league as well. Obviously, there was a big trade that happened with the Giants and the Padres earlier this week. And then you actually brought to my attention some of Tommy Pham. Our good friend Tommy Pham had some interesting comments on Twitter, I think it was, or he was quoted on Twitter. So we'll talk about that. And I also want to talk about Christian Yelich again. We talked about this in our last episode, but things aren't getting any better down in Miami. So we'll touch on that as well. We're also broadcasting this on YouTube again. So hopefully we might get some viewers here. So in the future here, follow us on Twitter, and we'll take your questions live when we get them in. So we'll see if we get any of those as well to fill some time. But Luis, so you were there all 3 days at CubsCon?
Yep, I went all 3 days.
Okay. And so opening ceremony, that's like it sets the tone for the entire weekend. And if my memory serves, it's usually a lot of flashing lights, a lot of players walking in slow motion. Everybody's got their jersey on. What happened this year?
Yeah, so it was a lot of the old, what we're used to. Like you said, the flashing lights, the video, the hype videos always get me, man.
Yeah.
Just looking back at last year, I swear that Wade Davis strikeout of Bryce Harper just always gets me right here. Like it just brings up some feelings that, like, oh yeah, I can feel feelings. I mean, I can feel things other than the cold, and it feels great.
So I follow you on Snapchat, and I think like after that game, you watched that at least 6 or 7 times, and we're always like just tweeting or snapping that one strikeout. How many times have you watched that?
Oh, more than a dozen times, and it comes up a lot on MLB Network.
Right,
it was like one of the top plays, and they did they've been doing they were doing season in review stuff. So, like, when they do the Nationals season in review, like, that's how it ends before they start talking. And I always just get like, ooh, I got to snap this just so I can remember how awesome that felt. It felt great. Like, there's, like, some other stuff, like, some plays. Like, one of my favorite things about the hype videos is I was like, yeah, I remember that. Like, you remember how you felt when Javi slid home to beat the Blue Jays. Like, you remember that. You remember the John Lester pickoff play, of course, of Tommy Pham, naturally. It's like, oh yeah, like we can get through this winter, and once we do, baseball's there for us. I can't wait. I'm so pumped.
So, all right, so they did the hype video. People are walking out. Was there anything bigger that happened than that, like the first day, or was that like pretty much the highlight?
No, the highlight was the hype video and Tom Ricketts' State of the Cubs address, where things are great and they're doing things in the community. Nothing earth-shattering there. There was no surprise signing. There was no surprise Jake Arrieta. No Dexter Fowler popping out of a cake.
Right. So what was like some of so they after the opening ceremonies, the next day is typically a lot of those panels, which are really interesting. And I know that it's hard to get to all of them because they usually overlap times just to or aren't going to just one. But I mean, did you get to any of those panels, and what was some of the big ones there?
So I got to a couple of the panels. One of them was the hitters clinic where there's so it's like Bryant, Hayward, Rizzo, Contreras, and Addison Russell were there. That one was a lot of fun. Some weird questions, obviously. Like one of my favorite random questions was like Anthony Rizzo got a boat in the offseason, and someone asked him what he named his boat.
Okay, what was the answer?
I don't remember.
Oh, come on, man.
I was too busy laughing. Like, come on, who's got a million questions you could ask Anthony Rizzo? Like, I heard you got a boat. What's your boat's name?
No, that's a fair question. I'm mad that we'll never know. I can't even Google it.
I was too busy laughing at the idea of asking Anthony Rizzo about his boat. My favorite question, of course, was someone asking about Chris Bryant about Bryce Harper and if he'd already started recruiting him. And KB goes, my hardest. And I'm just like, he's got these boyish qualities. It just reminds me of a kid. Like, yeah, I'll try, sure. Whatever, guys.
So what was I think it was you. It looked like there was a dude that had dressed up as like a Mexican wrestler and was asking a question. What was that about?
So there was a young Hispanic fan on the last day of the convention. So to wear this outfit, it's a luchador outfit with the mask and everything. And he actually asked a really good question about the Cubs going into Mexico and looking for talent and scouting talent and signing talent. And he asked about, I think it was Alberto, who's a Mexican prospect the Cubs have. And I'm just like, man, I did not expect that question from a man in that getup. I was really impressed. Moreover, like the more important stuff was the Cubs are really focusing in on scouting in Mexico, in part because they're in the penalty box from signing elsewhere. Mexico is excluded from being one of those countries that you can't scout in. So you can, if you are in the penalty box, go after prospects in Mexico without being penalized. Now the Dodgers have long had a stronghold in Mexico, but to see the Cubs in there as like the secondary team is like, it gives me good feelings because the Dodgers are like a great example of what you can do if other teams aren't scouting in an area that maybe they should be. You think of Fernando, you think of Urias, who, I mean, he's got some arm issues, but was like 17 and like a top prospect in baseball. So seeing that the Cubs are still looking for different ways to attack some of their depth problems, some of their prospect issues, like they're still on it. They won a World Series, but that's not stopping them from still going after the things that got them there in the first place.
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring up the scouting in Mexico, because I mean, like when the Dodgers found Urias, that's how you pronounce his name, right?
I think it's Urias.
Urias. They weren't even going to watch him. They were going to watch some other like shortstop or something like that, I think, and they ended up finding this kid that was firing 90 miles an hour at what age was he, like 14 or 15 at the time? Yeah.
I believe they were scouting either Puig or Cespedes. Was
it? Oh, okay.
Was he like one of those two guys? It might have been Puig, who was like playing in like had a Mexican League showcase, and there's this like fireballing 15-year-old.
Yeah, it's crazy. All those small towns in there, you just never know what you're gonna run into. So it's cool that they're gonna spend some money down there. Cool. So what did you hear? Did you hear about I heard a rumor that Carlos Zambrano got into a fight and then missed his autograph signing the next day. Can you confirm or deny that?
I heard about that. I know Zambrano wasn't there for his signing. But like I didn't hear anything about anything that happened, which is unfortunate because I heard the same rumor and I was just like, I would have loved to, like, is he, the Cubs have brought him back into the fold, which is kind of crazy considering how he walked out, or he at least tried walking out on them in, 2012?
Yeah.
Like before they traded him to the Marlins. So his Cubs career was brilliant for the most part. It flamed out. He came back and apologized, and the Cubs have him in like I've seen him at the park a couple times, and just to hear if he's having issues with people in the organization, that's disappointing because he was a very popular Cub and he was one of my favorites. So it is nice to see him around the park when he's there.
Was Alfonso Soriano there?
I did not see Alfonso Soriano there. He was one of the few 2008 Cubs. They had there was a 2008 Cubs panel that I didn't go to that I kind of wish I would have, but I would have gone if Soriano was there. He's one of the few ones who wasn't there.
So was it like Fontenot, Zambrano, and who else?
Ted Lilly was there, Dempster, Kerry Wood. And there were some like other throwback guys like Brian McRae. Like Brian McRae was at the first Cubs convention I ever went to.
Really?
Well, that was kind of trippy. Terry Adams, I remember like Terry Adams being like the closer of the future for like 5 years and just never happened for him. Bill Buckner was there.
Okay.
Kind of cool. A guy that I didn't expect to see. Andre Dawson, who was back with the team. So like there's always some surprises. There was no Sammy Sosa, as we all well know.
Yeah, someday, man. Someday, hopefully we can get over that. The craziest story that I have about CubsCon. So my dad, the first day that my dad and I went, I think it was like 2007, 2006, somewhere in there. And we had did all the CubsCon things. We had waited in line for an autograph and all that stuff. And then we were walking out, and all of a sudden I see like these two kids like run to this guy at the door. And so like we're walking by, and these two kids are like talking to this dude, and he starts signing something. And I'm like, Dad, that was Ryan Dempster. And he's like, no, it's not. I was like, yeah, that's Ryan Dempster, like right there. And there's nobody around him. Like it's just these two kids that saw him. Nobody else knows it's him yet. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to get him to sign my pass. And so we go up to him. I was like, hey, can you sign this? And he's like, yeah, no problem. He signs it. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, you get like 30 people that were just around us. And like we got our autographs and got out of there. Didn't have to deal with anything, but it was crazy. Like he just was walking through the lobby like it was no big deal.
My favorite Cubs convention story was, I think it was 2001 or 2002. The Cubs convention was happening the same weekend the Bears were having a playoff game. And it was at the Chicago Hilton Inn Towers, and that's where the Bears were staying before the game. And I was with my cousin, and we wanted to eat something at that little diner that was there, but it was so packed. And I'm like, well, I know a place where we can go eat, but it's like a block away, and it's a Harold's Chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And we walk in there. It was kind of a slow night, and so we walked in, and then right behind us, you hear ding, 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 like all these people coming at once. And we look behind us, and it's a bunch of Chicago Bears. It's like Philip Daniels, R.W. McQuarters, Roosevelt Colvin, Warwick Holdman. Like I got a bunch of that was the year I might have gotten more Bears autographs than I got Cubs autographs. So like me and my cousin are sitting there. And it's just like, and at the time there were only like 3 or 4 benches. So like you got like 2 or 3 benches with like Bears players, and me and my cousin, and like we were talking with them, and like it was really cool.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Like, especially as a kid to run into like that many people that you see on TV like every week. Man, that would be a great thing. R.W. McQuarters, by the way, he's like one of the first Bears that I as a fan I really really liked for no good reason. You have those guys that you just like because you do. Like that was one of the first ones that I can remember that I was like, man, I love this guy. Like he's got the dreads, he's got it going on,
and he's got a cool name. Yeah,
it was easy to remember. That's probably why I liked him. Cool. Well, CubsCon sounded fun. I'm sad I missed it, but I'm glad you got to experience it for another year. Hopefully, it'll lead to some good things in the season. Let's talk about this trade. I thought it was surprising. I don't know what you thought about it, but Andrew McCutchen got traded this week to the Giants. What was your initial thoughts on just the trade in general?
So, like, my first thought was, man, it's a rough weekend for Pittsburgh because, before that trade, you had the trade with the Astros for Garrett Cole.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Steelers, gag one away against the Jaguars. And then, you wake up the next day and Kutch is leaving. and it's really disappointing from a Pirates fan perspective. Just trying to think from their point of view. That team was built with like a short window, but they never really capitalized on it. Like their best year came in a year where the Cubs and the Cardinals were better than them, or even as good as them. So their best year was that wild card year, and they lost the coin flip game. Like they never did anything. Like if you think about what the Royals did, the Royals are an interesting comp because they were a small market team that had a lot of homegrown players. What the Royals did was they were willing to trade some prospects to get some final piece guys. They got Ben Zobrist, they got Johnny Cueto. They gave up some decent prospects. Sean Manaea might turn out to be really good. Cody Reed, maybe not, but the Pirates never did that. They never really went for it. Like I can't remember the big Pirates acquisition that I thought, man, that's going to put them over the top. They never went that far. So if I was a Pirates fan, I'd be really disappointed in that. And you traded away 2 franchise icons.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That was like my first thought of like, man, like you're so close. Like you had a former MVP winner. You had a prospect in Polanco that you thought was going to be something that maybe he didn't turn out to be, but like the time he came up was about the time that like they were starting to turn the corner, and you thought maybe there's a way, and you feel like your owners and your GM let you down a little bit because they didn't do what they needed to do to beat the division. It's not anybody's fault that the Cubs and Cardinals were better than them. It just doesn't seem like they did enough. And then now when they have the opportunity to make decent trades, it doesn't seem like they got enough for – I mean, Garrett Cole is one thing, but it doesn't seem like they got enough for McCutchen. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think they like his market value was what they got?
I don't think highly of the Giants prospects, so I don't think they, one, got enough, or two, traded with a team that – where, okay, maybe you don't get it. It doesn't look like enough on paper, but there are some budding qualities in guys that we might not see at first glance. Like, I don't feel that way about their return for Kutch. So it's just like, part of it is name values. Like, the name McCutchen should net you huge names with high upside, or at least guys with high upside. Like Cal Crick, they've been talking about trading him for like years in San Francisco. The Garrett Cole trade's a little bit better. I like Joe Musgrove. I think he's a guy whose floor is high-end bullpen arm. And I think his ceiling is lights-out closer, even though they already got one in Rivero. Maybe he can be a number 3 starter in the National League, change the scenery. But, like, the guy who developed a lot of those young arms now in Pittsburgh now works for the Cubs. So good luck with that.
Yeah. I think too, like the trade value thing is always hard to comprehend, I guess, because you don't know what a player is going to be. But like the fit never made sense with the Giants and Pittsburgh. Like you said, like the Giants system wasn't this robust thing that the Pittsburgh could say like, oh, I 100% need this guy. I need this guy. It only made sense from the point of the Giants because they've been searching for an outfield bat for so long. Like they've never had a power bat since Barry Bonds left. So it made sense from that perspective and from my view.
Yeah, like it made sense from one side of the coin. You look at that Giants team and what who did they? I can't even remember who they had playing outfield last year, but they were no good. That's all I remember is that they were no good. Like Denard Span maybe had like a good month, but he's on his last legs. I mean, he might be baseball done for a while. They got him in Longoria too, so like they're trying to win the 2012 World Series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Denard Span, that was a dude that I wanted in the Cubs so bad. Like that was my free agent signing that year. I wanted him like I had never wanted a player that I can recall. And I just once again, it's like, man, just don't give Miles a team. He'll mess it up.
or like don't give him a team too late.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get to some Tommy Pham comments. So I'm gonna read you some tweets here. All right. So Pham thinks that he is a 30-30 player, apparently. He says he's got the skills to get there. And he says, quote, "A lot of people don't believe anything I say. After I do it, it's easy for me to say, I told you so." 30-30. What do you think, Luis?
30-30. How many 30-30 guys do we have going on? There's really not a lot of base stealing these days, unless you're, Billy Hamilton or D. Gordon. Maybe if he gets 600 at bats, there's like an outside chance. But then again, like this was the guy, like I mentioned earlier, he got picked off by John Lester. You ain't gonna get 30 stolen bases if you're getting picked off by John Lester. Sorry, bud. There's one thing though, like Pham kind of called out Mike Matheny early last year about his own playing time and losing playing time to some guys that he probably shouldn't have been losing it to, and he turned out to be right. So maybe there's a shot in the dark that he becomes some 30-30 guy out of the blue, but kudos to him for having like the cojones to think that and to say that out loud. But that's now you're putting the target on your back. It's different to try to reach goals when you're like under the radar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when guys are aiming for you, when like he's probably gonna bat third, fourth in the lineup, he's gonna hit in the middle. They're gonna go after you differently when you're the man, as opposed to any other time when Tommy Pham is 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th place hitter, and maybe I could work around him. Maybe I get away with a mistake, and then you don't. So it's that's tough sledding. I mean, he was a prospect, a while ago. Cardinals fans really liked him before like he was kind of mainstream. He's never really stayed healthy.
Yeah, that's the thing. You gotta stay in the field first. I mean, could he do it? Maybe. I mean, he had 23 home runs last year, 25 stolen bases, but like that's the point. Is like there's been a lot of guys that have come really close, but the 30-30 club is really hard. I mean, I'm looking at the list right now. The last guy to do it was this little-known baseball player by the name of Mike Trout in 2012. I think Ryan Braun did it that year as well. But like that, it hasn't been done since 2012. It's 2018. Like it's hard to do. And I think Tommy Pham is not in the list of the top of the guys on the list for people that I think are gonna maybe get to that threshold.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he's the guy to. I can see another 2020 season out of him. That's reasonable. Just getting the at bats, being healthy, getting the opportunities to steal. Mike Matheny's a relatively conservative guy, so he doesn't really send his guys running a lot. But so I mean, that's another thing you're gonna have to contend with and Mike Matheny is probably gonna be managing for a contract, managing to not miss the playoffs for a third straight year. Do you want to be sending Tommy Pham when you've got middle of the order hitters behind him? Probably not.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I hope he doesn't, just from a pure divisional standpoint. But I mean, I don't mind Tommy Pham. I think that it's funny to see him talk because you just don't see it in baseball a lot, and I kind of like that. The fact that he's not this dude that you have to play by the unwritten rules. He's like a way worse Harper. A guy that's just going to speak his mind. You're going to know how he feels. And I like that. You get that in the NBA, you get that in the NFL, and for some reason it's not allowed in the MLB, and I think it's really dumb. So, regardless of the fact he's on the Cardinals or not, regardless of the fact if you think he's right, I kind of like the fact that he's talking because it makes it more interesting for me as a fan.
I'll say this as a warning to Tommy Pham. The last guy who tried to boost his own stuff at a Cardinals fest was Matt Holliday. A question was asked to him. A friend of mine was there, and he relayed me the story. It was 2016, maybe 2015. I think it was 2016. It was 2016. It was before the Cubs won the World Series. Cubs won the World Series in 2016. People forget that.
Praise be.
Anyway, so someone had asked Matt Holliday if, they asked him about the Jason Hayward comments about the Cubs being a younger team with some more upside. And Matt Holliday was mocking the question about, oh, I can feel it in my bones, and then he like missed a bunch of games with injuries. So like, dude, just be careful. Just be careful. You don't want to put that attention on you and watch it fall through. You don't want to end up like Matt Holliday.
Yeah, that's cautionary tale. The Matt Holliday cautionary tale. Yeah, we'll see, man. I don't know. I just like that he's talking. It makes it interesting for me, and I wish that more people would tell me what they're feeling, because it just makes it more exciting. Let's talk about Christian Yelich again. Jared and I talked about possible trade scenarios as best we could with the Cubs and how Christian Yelich might fit into that. But there's a tweet today by Jerry Krasnick. It says that Christian Yelich's relationship with the Marlins is, quote, irretrievably broken. I was trying to say a different word. His agent tells ESPN, says a trade would be best for all involved. So irretrievably broken is the quote there. Christian Yelich and the Marlins. Man, that is a dumpster fire down there. What do you think about this?
If I could put like a GIF on the screen, it would be the Chief Wiggum going into the hot dog machine GIF, where he's like, "This is gonna get worse before it gets better." Because oh my goodness, this Marlins thing is a train wreck.
Yeah.
Like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. I don't want to say it's an overpay for the ball club, but like when you're struggling, when you buy a club and like you got to trade assets right away just so you could afford it, that's questionable. When you're not getting decent return on investment on an MVP, that's not a good look. The Ozuna trade was closer to fair market value, but probably still not enough. Just now they want to get rid of the home run statue too for no reason. Like everything that's made the Marlins interesting has just gone up in flames, and they're getting rid of it for no reason.
Yeah. Like for me, it's like, all right, so if I tell you that I'm selling my car, I have to sell my car. It's January right now. I have to sell my car by March 1, regardless of what happens. I have to sell my car. And you come to me and you say, Miles, I'm going to give you half of what you're looking for this car just to take it off your hands. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I've lost all my negotiating power. I can't say anything. There's nothing I can say to come back, and I can say, well, it runs really well. It's got low mileage. You're going to say, yeah, but like get back to me in a couple of months because you still got to get rid of this thing. That's exactly what the Marlins did in the Stanton trade. They said, we have to get rid of this guy because we have X, Y, and Z profit line to make. And they took away all their negotiating power. And so they didn't get fair market value. Like you said, with Ozuna, maybe it was a little bit different because Ozuna was never a guy that they said, we have to trade this guy at a certain point. But Yelich is the same way now. Yelich, like people know he doesn't want to be there. I think people knew that the Marlins were going to try to trade him anyway. They have no bargaining chip in this. They've completely mortgaged their future for the next, at least 6 or 7 years, unless they probably will finish last in the draft, so they'll at least have that. But they haven't been stockpiling draft picks the way that you would like to see a rebuilding team rebuild. It's unreal how they've mismanaged this thing.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing is like, yeah, they're gonna finish last in the draft and they're gonna have a bunch of money, but are they gonna go in on prospects? Remember, they didn't go after Shohei Ohtani because they didn't think that they thought the price was too expensive. It's just like it's $20 million
cheap
to do that negotiating, and the most he could have made was $5 million. Like the Marlins were the only team absolutely not in on a bargain basement value. It boggles my mind how that group.
Lou, it wasn't just bargain basement hunting. Like this, it was a superstar that you're getting at a bargain basement price. Like it makes it worse.
you got a used Ferrari, low miles, real cheap, and didn't want it. Didn't need it.
Don't got a garage spot for it. Can't.
So I can totally see the Marlins being that team where they're bad for a while, and they're probably going to be continually bad because there's no idea how to invest in what's necessary to be good and cheap at the same time.
Yeah.
Or good and affordable.
And the poor city of Miami just built him a new stadium.
It's the Marlins Ponzi scheme. It's the greatest Ponzi scheme in sports. We're gonna move to places you've never heard of and that don't want a baseball team and don't need a baseball team unless you build us a stadium. And the Marlins, the Miami fans, God bless them. They should have just told them no. The city should have just told them no, and call their bluff. Maybe it's that no one in Miami knows how to negotiate.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's in the water down there. It just doesn't it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I think I say it almost every single podcast, but oh my God, I'm so happy that I don't have to have these conversations like this about my own team anymore. Like it's to have almost implicit trust in your ownership and the people that are running the actual team. Like that is a huge luxury. It's massive because there's a couple other teams in the city of Chicago that do not have that either. I'm just happy that one of them I can just trust that okay, I might not agree with the decision initially, but I'm sure that they have data to back that up, and that's a really good feeling.
There was a quote from Tom Ricketts over the weekend that I don't remember it exactly, but to paraphrase, someone had asked him about free agency, and he was just like, I really don't know what's going to happen, but they have all the resources to get whatever they want done. That's kind of a throwaway quote, but to me, I was just I feel so much better knowing hey, the owner, I don't know what's going on, but the guys that are in charge do. So
right, yeah. Here's the money, make it work, and we're good.
The perfect example, to counter that, is what's happening with the Bears, where they had a coaching search a couple weeks ago, and the president and the team chairman are going in on the search. It's just well, you don't trust your GM to get it done?
Yeah, it makes me so angry. You hire a guy to do a job, let him do his job. If your job was GM, you'd be running a team right now, but you don't. You just that's not your job description. So let the dude that you think is really smart make that decision.
Yeah, they're the only reasons they have those guys in the room is well, this is the guy that signs the check. So you want coaches? This is the guy that gives you the money. So you talk to him. This is the guy that we all answer to. He's the owner.
Yeah.
But other than that, you look at the Marlins. It reminds me of the Jordan Wizards days. Just one poor decision after another, and it's not just poor decision. It's ill-informed decisions, and it's decisions made by people who have not surrounded themselves with great minds.
Yeah, making decisions on emotions. You fall in love with a guy and you draft him that's ill-advised, or you don't follow what the actual process is that you might want to lay out before a draft class. There's so many things that go into it that you have to hire smart people to make those decisions, and then let the smart people actually make those decisions.
Always try to surround yourself with people smarter than you.
So I hang out with you, Luis.
Oh, man, you made a mistake.
Oh, man. Well, Luis, I know this is sweet and short, but there's just not a lot going on in baseball right now. It's kind of boring out there.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating because, I love baseball offseason. There's free agency around Thanksgiving. You usually get a couple under the radar signings, short deals and whatnot. December, when you got the winter meetings, that's when all the good stuff happens. And then in January, you get the late signers, the Boris guys.
Mm-hmm.
The Boris guys who out that are big money guys. We've had none of that. We've had one big trade, one kind of big trade with the Cardinals. So you have the big trade with the Yankees, the big trade with the Cardinals, and we've had a couple of trades in the last couple of days, but for the most part, it's been a whole lot of nothing. There's gonna be some guys, man. Could you imagine if there are guys who just decide, you know what, I'm well off enough to where I can sit out until May, and someone's arm hurts, and they can call me up hey, we need that ace, or hey, we need that power hitter.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more. Like until this point, there's been a market for services, and people and players are scared, because you don't have a job, it's your livelihood. But if you're a superstar player and you have a very, very specific set of criteria, both from a financial standpoint and from a team standpoint, it's not football. You don't have to learn a playbook. You can jump in mid-season. It's not basketball in terms of conditioning. As long as you're keeping yourself in shape, I think especially a pitcher, it's a lot harder for a batter to come in and just, halfway through the season and start, swinging dingers. But I think from a pitching standpoint, you take you a couple of starts, but I think you could fit in really, really well halfway through the season. And I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often.
This might be the year to do it, because I was thinking about it. Like, what would stop you, Darvish, from saying, "Hey, what's he got? $50 million in the bank in MLB contracts? Hey, I'm gonna sit this out. Rest my arm, rest my elbow. Maybe come June 1st, someone needs me, like Roger Clemens used to do with the Astros and the Yankees.
Yeah, exactly right.
3 months, just hang out with the family. The kids are out of school, are out from school. They're home for the summer. Time for me to go.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, there was a quote. I forget where I saw it. Maybe our group chat, one of the guys sent it out. But one of the big free agents out there said that he was more than willing to sit out until halfway through the season.
Bidding wars. Come June season, could you imagine an all-star break bidding war for an ace rather than trying to put package all your prospects away for a guy? There's a guy out there on the market. Why not?
It's awesome. I love it. That would be so fun. So much fun.
It'd be more fun
than the Cubs
season.
Yeah, as long as the Cubs got their guys.
Yeah, and hopefully the Cubs get their guy, maybe a couple guys.
Yeah, we'll see, man. It's been slow, but hopefully it picks up here. I think the dominoes will be falling soon, or we're waiting, like you said, until June. But we'll see. Luis, thanks for coming on tonight, man. This was fun.
This was fun. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Remember to follow Luis at LCM1986. Again, he writes at BleacherNation.com. He's the lead writer at the 10-yard line for all your Bears coverage. Again, I'm Miles. You can follow me at MPhelps11. Make sure to follow at Cubs Den. Make sure to check out the Chicago Now Cubs Den website. Luis, any other plugs?
At the 10-yard line. Just spell it out.
At the 10-yard line.
Hit us up. We've got a lot of good Bears stuff. We're obsessively watching assistant coaches now to see where the rest of the staff plays out.
Oh God!
And we're looking at draft prospects because it's that time of the year where you got all these college showcase all-star games. Give me the prospects. We all know the Bears have needs at every position, so it's just we're watching everybody.
Trubinsky needs help. Go and follow that story with Luis at the 10-yard line and the10yardline.com. All right, Luis, we'll catch you the next time, brother.
That's right. Take care, Miles. I appreciate it. Love you, man.